Hello again. This is a mentor update for December 2020, just a little end of year thing to give some sort of sense of how things have been going and some information that might be of use to you. So away we go. What's the aim or the purpose of today? Review progress today, explore some of our learning. There's a few things that I'll mention in passing. Um, Discuss any issues you may have encountered. I have held 4 of these sessions. People have come along and fed back, which was very helpful. And if you feel like you would like to do that, please do contact me because we're in permanent learning mode and we would like to hear what you have to say. So, what about our experiences from the teaching staff and the sub-regional assessors? It is, as ever, a great privilege and a pleasure to be involved with the apprentices because we think they're awesome, essentially. They have a depth of experience, skills, and understanding, and they're bringing that into the classroom. They're very enthusiastic. They have very positive responses to new learning. But of course, there are challenges. We kind of think, so we started off with readiness for direct practice PCF level, and really all the apprentices are probably way past that over there somewhere. So we're just finished the first semester of a 3-year course, so it's not a particularly big issue, but on occasion we might be a little bit more modest with learning opportunities, what we're trying to do. We've made some changes in course, the assignments, timing of work and things like that, largely in response to either our own learning, but in particular, the apprentices' feedback. So we do listen to what they have to say, both through formal methods such as student voice meetings, things of that nature, but also informally, what they're telling us in class and online, and by other ways. Our ethos is this generally, that our apprentices went through quite frequently rigorous processes to actually get on the course. They have all that experience, so there's no reason why they should not all progress. So our ethos is definitely one of the whole group moves forward together. No apprentice left behind. So I mentioned the PCF levels, its readiness for direct practice, and I'm just putting this up as an example about where the bar is in terms of RDP level. This one is critical analysis and reflection. I'm not going to go through it in any great detail, even, although it's just basically a little bit simplistic in, well, simpler, I think would be a better way to put it, than what you might be working towards as qualified social workers. So when you kind of break it down into these kind of elements, we can see that it's about understand, demonstrate basic skills, understand and recognize and describe. So it's kind of like in Bloom's terminology, it's kind of at the lower end of learning kind of modes, as it were. There's good and bad things about this. Some PCFs, for example, PCF 9, might be a little difficult to achieve in some ways. But at RDP, the idea is that you understand the importance of leadership, or what kind of leadership structures might be in social work. And that might be quite simply achieved by discussing that in supervision, because it's highly unlikely that the mentors don't understand leadership and management in their particular work contexts. We've been sending out a lot of assignment instructions, trying to make things clear about what's required. And in the main, we certainly have had to provide some clarification on occasion, but in the main, people are finding those kind of assignment updates and instructions helpful and useful. They have done, or they will do on the course, 4 modules in total. So transitions into social work has just been completed. They're completed the teaching for 4012, and they're going to submit assignments early next year. Early next year, we'll also start introduction to law, policy, and ethics. And of course, on the job, learning keeps going all the time. So I'm just going to say a little bit about each of these modules and kind of how it went and why it's designed in the way it is. So this is off the job learning. transitions into social workers. The first one is about transitions in professional and personal identity, and there's quite a few changes for people in that respect. And I'm guessing if you cast your own mind back to when you trained as a social worker, you probably encountered a fair few changes, transitions yourself. This is led by Jacqueline Harry. This is the wonderful Jacqueline here, with Susan Watson, that's the course leader, and myself also teaching, but the module was led by Jacqueline. And in general, with all these modules, we're trying to synthesize or bring together in some way, shape, or form these different on the job, off the job elements, but also trying to start people thinking about theory and the use of theory in practice to encourage reflection, critical analysis, things of that nature, but also to try to build up academic skills. For example, how to reference academic literature correctly. We're making good progress on all of these, as far as we're concerned. The journey into social work, the first assignment, very soon into the course. Very interesting, sometimes quite poignant and touching stories that people talk about their how they actually ended up in social work, unqualified social worker workers. Oh, that sentence didn't go very well, did it? But I'm not recording the whole thing again. But you know, many years, up to 20 years experience and longer for some people, you know. So they have stories to tell, sometimes quite personal, but always interesting. And then we start to ask them about process recording. So it's a kind of social work tool that's been around for a long time, but now we're actually starting them to practice some social work skills and develop these skills in the workplace and bring it into the classes in college. So that's a little bit about why assignments are designed the way they are. So we kind of, okay, so we're starting off with this transition, but then we'll think about what kind of important social work skills shall we start to kind of build over time. And you could see in foundational knowledge and skills, development across the lifespan, which is about human growth and development, again, led by Jacqueline, but co-taught with Susan. Again, it's about an observation, but on this occasion, we're actually asking for an explanation of research models. So really over 3 years, the course builds up like this, that it's incrementally introduced the whole skill set and knowledge kind of that we will need for the endpoint assessment, which is the EPA that we'll do at the end of year 3. So it's kind of scaffolding learning, constructivist, if you want the kind of official term, but it essentially just means that incremental building of a series of skills, academic skills, reflective skills, the use of theory over an extended period of time. Next year in January, we will start law, policy and ethics, which will be mainly taught by Susan, and Jacqueline will also be teaching, but we're actually bringing in a number of other colleagues to teach on particular aspects of the law and policy. So there'll be a lot more actual different staff teaching on this one. On this is the first occasion we bring in an actual exam. The legal exam is often something that makes people a little anxious. And then we ask for a poster presentation, which will be a kind of a group effort. Now, the idea really here is that we need a range of different assessment methods across the whole of the course. If you just stick with your 2,500 word essay or similar, really then what happens is that privileges students who are able to kind of do those things better than perhaps their peers. So with a range of different assessments, you kind of not exactly level out the playing field, but you give people, I suppose, opportunities to demonstrate their particular set of skills in the assessment process. So that's really why we mix up the assignments. This is on-the-job learning. Yes, that's me. And it goes throughout the year, and it could be up to June. The 1st of February, they'll produce their first portfolio, but they have been building up to that at the moment. So they've submitted a number of formative assignments. The first thing here, Journey into Social Work, is actually lifted from the Transitions module, so that just goes straight in there. And we feel it'd be useful at the start of the next year that apprentices maybe cast their mind back to that initial journey into social work and compare and contrast where they are in about 12 months' time or thereabouts. Learning needs and opportunities, of course, is the work that they've been doing with you, because essentially that's the mentoring agreement, and we've seen very positive work there. Good evidence of developing that working relationship, or sometimes resetting that relationship, because you may actually know the person that you're mentoring for a considerable time, or you may not. It varies hugely from agency to agency. And of course, talking of agencies, we asked them to do an agency description. Really, that's describe the agency, where it sits, a little bit about the local population, what kind of legal and policy context the work operates in, and a little bit about, is there any kind of a practice model that is used? And we do also ask, is there anything you would do to improve practice in your organization? Describing the legal and policy context actually helps us then when we're going to do introduction to the law, ethics and policy in the new year. So in a kind of way, the modules interact in various different ways with each other. They have completed a lot of direct observations, mainly done by the SRAs, but not entirely. Sometimes the mentors have also done these, and that of course is connected to the feedback from PLE. So overwhelmingly what we're seeing is the demonstration of skills in the workplace that clearly demonstrate competence at the RDP level, and usually beyond that, and sometimes quite a way beyond that. So we're seeing some great actual practice skills. People will be getting used to observations because they will continue out through the 3-year course. And at the moment, we're doing critical reflection 1, which is a critical reflection on your learning on the course so far this year. And a lot of people have already submitted those. Sometimes they're reflecting on their direct observation. They don't have to, they don't want to, but that's a choice open to them. And sometimes people are using it as more kind of a strategic sort of overview of particular learning that's been important to them in the past year. Now, all of this lot is going to go into that portfolio. There'll also be their index of evidence, which I'm hoping that you're kind of having a look at every so often with your apprentice. But there'll be more guidance coming about that in the not too distant future. But they'll put all of these elements into that portfolio, and we're hoping that in early January you'll get a chance to meet with your apprentice and the SRA to review progress for that portfolio before it's actually submitted. Then the next portfolio has similar elements, but some kind of small differences, but we'll not go into that now. But that's in June, as you can see, and there will be a Viva, which is a presentation on learning across the year. The reason we have Vivas is not to terrify people, because we know a lot of people don't like public speaking or that kind of presenting in public or whatever, but the endpoint assessment requires them to do that. So we want people over the 3 years to both kind of not be as worried or scared by that, but also to get plenty of practice in doing it and kind of build up their skills in doing those activities. So we have some core staff and SRA feedback. So this is the kind of stuff SRAs and teaching staff were saying. So this is in 2 halves. First bit is really about kind of more taking care of business search staff. We would encourage mentors to sign up to access materials. So we did 4 mentoring sessions, and quite a few people, I wouldn't hazard a guess about exactly how many or what percentage of the mentoring population that would involve, but a lot of people haven't got the sign up from Kingston. They haven't been able to access resources. So it's my job to fix that. Very sorry, many apologies. I thought this would have been resolved. The part of the organization that does that said he distancing himself from the responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's on my table, really. So I'm going to have to do something about it. So I hope to do that pretty soon. We noticed there's stuff about workload management, surprise, surprise. But there's a few elements of this. Some people's roles make it some elements of the PCF easier to demonstrate than others. So there's a small group of managers, for example, who are probably usually in a pretty good position to do, I'd say, PCF 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, those kind of ones, but less 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. That, in the sense that they're not doing as much direct face-to-face work with people because their time is taken up about managing teams and various interventions and processes in their organizations. So we are going to actually put a little how would I say, seminar together with them, with somebody from who's had a similar kind of route into training as a social worker. But I think as mentors and as other staff, we need to bear that in mind when we're thinking about what opportunities might be available for that particular group of people. Some people's job roles really don't lend themselves very well to being able to demonstrate their PCF. So there's an interesting kind of challenge for employers really to think about, well, is that person going to stay in that particular role throughout the whole 3 years? Is that actually going to be tenable? How much can we work with opportunities in other teams in the meantime? And is that going to be okay in the longer term or not? We don't really know. At the end of the day, decisions about this should be guided by what opportunities are going to be required by the apprentices to demonstrate capability. Think about eventually we're getting up to capability at the end of final placement. So, you know, there has to be some direct work and it has to be meaningful, probably a significant amount is going to have statutory responsibility of some description wrapped up in it. So it should also be an 80-20 split. Some people have definitely been afforded additional time in their working day, perhaps by a reduction of caseload or sometimes by a reduction in the amount of duty they're doing. Various different ways to achieve this. But really, if their apprentices are not getting a reduction in their workload, it is untenable and I would argue unfair to put them in that position and expect them to learn and develop as a social worker. You know, there's a lot involved in it. You've all been through it yourselves. So it's kind of like, well, from our point of view, we will continue to advocate for that. Employers are agreed that that's the way it should be. And of course, we have to take the real world into account in the sense that there's maybe teams and organizations that go through particularly difficult periods, maybe after an Ofsted or a CQC investigation, or there may be issues with recruitment or wherever it happens to be. It could be a lot of different things. And we know that that's the real world. But at the same time, the commitment is there to the apprentice. And that's something that we need to honor. We would encourage you to review the index of evidence. We ask the apprentices to keep a rolling index of evidence so that they're not at various points trying to pull a whole load of stuff together for portfolios and other activities. As you know yourself, if you try to do everything lastminute.com, it's not really a recipe for happiness. So you need to check that every so often, and periodically you need to sign that you have actually seen it. Check with the mentoring agreements to see that the learning opportunities are happening. And again, I suppose I talked about the PCF levels already, but in the new year, we'll be moving into the next level of the PCF, and we'll send out a little bit more guidance and some detail about that. So some of the more reflective elements, and there may perhaps be a little bit of repetition of what I said already here, but nonetheless in an attempt to make these things explicit. We're now in a kind of a place where we can perhaps encourage more reflection around practice, theory, and literature. And if you're helping the apprentice to make some of those kind of links, that would be pretty good. This is our tap dancing on the moon one from Jacqueline. I suppose really it's a plea that they don't have to do the most complex case for the direct observations or what they write about. And they don't have to have the most complex learning opportunities in place right now. They'll get to those things, but we can kind of pace them out a little bit over time and kind of resist that urge to be tap dancing in the moon, as it were. Again, they really engage with theory, but a lot of their jobs are quite process driven. And in their reflections, you can see them thinking about this. They're going, oh, well, I just supposedly go through the list. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't bring social work skills and knowledge into that context. But when they start working reflectively, you kind of start thinking about even their kind of normal day-to-day tasks in a slightly different way. So that is the opportunity not only to kind of get engaged in reflection, but actually to start linking the theory up a little bit. That is particular to their particular work context, essentially. Many particulars there. And last but not least, Carol suggested that get some feedback from them, that's you, the mentors, about what we're doing as SRAs. And is there anything helpful or anything we could do different? And within reason, of course, because we can't actually do tap dancing on the moon as it happens. But really, this is just an encouragement that if you want to feedback, you can do that in any way you want. You can ring me, you can email me, text me, whatever would be suitable to you. But, you know, we act on feedback where we can, within reason, as Carol says, but we certainly learn from it. So let us know if there are things that are not quite working out for you. And from me, I think that's quite enough for one day. I hope you get some time off in the coming weeks, and we'll look forward to talking with you and meeting again in the new year. Ho, ho, ho. Oh, gosh, that's nice. See you later.